So I thought I would at least try to do some of my talk in Spanish to help everybody along. So I'll start with that. Hola. Okay, that's all I can do. So we'll go to English now. So just a breakdown of what I'm planning to, what we'll talk about in the next few sessions. We got now before lunch and then again after lunch. Just an outline. So what I want to do is start with an introduction to fish tracking in general, different types of tags, different methods of tracking fish or tracking animals. Then I'm going to concentrate on this pit tag technology, as that's the expertise that I work in. I'm not going to do this comparison on the next thing. We're going to look at an overview of a pit tag detection system, which we'll bring it down from the readers, the antennas, the power, collecting the data, and selecting a site to put these systems. Then, if we have time, we'll get to some system maintenance and monitoring, and then we'll probably be taking a break before we get through all of this, but we'll see how far we get. Part 2 that we'll do after lunch. Nick will be talking again about using pit tag technology to increase our understanding of fish ecology. So to fit it all into a context of the restoration and what we actually, once we collect these numbers, it's just a number of a fish that's done something, but to actually put it into a context of a useful monitoring technique. Then we're going to look at some of the different technology, pit tag technology that we've been coming up with in the last few years to help us along in situations where the basic antenna system doesn't work anymore. And then I've got because this is a fish passage type workshop, I've got a bunch of samples or examples of projects, fish passage projects that have been put in place in the area that I work in, which is the Colorado Basin in the United States, and what we did to monitor how useful these fish passage construction structures have been. Then hopefully we'll have another break, and then we're going to move on to Armando Piccini from Parte University and also from Weimar will give us an update of the pit tagging projects that he's been involved in the European Union, and then hopefully some product displays and to actually show an example of how this stuff works. And then also we would like to do a short presentation of how to actually tag a fish if we have time and if that's something that is of interest or need for this workshop. Okay, so almost took us to lunchtime just for the outline. Fish tracking technologies start with it could be as basic as an external tag, if you're just wanting to see, if you've seen your fish again for mark recapture study, you'll mark a certain amount of fish, see how many you catch on the next round, do your analyses and get some basic population metrics from that. There can also be a backup to an internal tag. If you've got a tag inside a fish, you catch that fish again. If the fish has an external marking, then you know you need to go and look for an internal tag. It can also indicate whether you've lost tags. You can get a percentage of how many tags have actually been lost from your fish, because you can see an external tag. It should have an internal tag. You can't find the internal tag. You can get an idea of how many tags you actually do. External tags, there's many different types of external tags. It can be as simple as just flipping off one of the fins of the fish. There could be tags, just got a pointer. A tag like this that you inject into the outside of the fish, but it's got a number on it so that you can tell individuals. And some of the issues with these external tags that can actually affect the behavior of the fish. So that's one of the downsides of an external tag, especially something like this with a fish that's moving around in the up in the rivers and causing damage to its body from an external tag. There's a pretty handy tag called a VIE tag, or visible implant elastomer tag, which is it's like an epoxy gel that you inject under the skin of a fish, and you can see it. It's all bright colors. You can see it as you from these examples. You just inject it in there, and you know that's a tagged fish. It's really handy for very small fish, or for a stocking event where you're doing 50,000 fish. You don't have to tag for each one of those. Something like this for monitoring really tiny little fish could be pretty handy. It's a simple, it's a relatively low cost, but getting information about an individual fish is really difficult because it's just colors. So ways you could do it is you put a certain color in a certain place on the fish, and then you could take it from that and know that that was an individual. But it's a chore to statistically to try to figure that out. So it's not really good for figuring out individual information from individual fish. Yeah, good idea. South Africans never need microphones anyway. Perfect. Okay, so carrying on with our fish tracking technologies, the radio tag is a really good tag for being able to track large individuals from over great distances, and from a far distance. You don't have to be in the river. You don't have to have equipment that could be damaged in the river. You could use it in fresh water and on land. The thing with the radio tag is there's an antenna on each, on the transmitter and on the receiver. So the fish is going to have the tag inside it, but then it's got a little antenna that sticks out of the fish. So it's also pretty big, and it's got an issue of a battery life. So how long is the battery going to last? It's really good for initially being able to do a study with a few individuals, because the tags are pretty expensive. But then you could figure out a general movement of fish based on one or two individuals that you can keep tracking. And saltwater use in saltwater is a problem. It doesn't transmit to the salt water. Ultrasonic tags are really fantastic tags for a really big river system, or in a lake or something like that. It transmits through salt water, so it's really handy in that situation. They're also big tags, and they also rely on a battery. So it depends how long your study is. If it's a few months, you can do a pretty small tag for a smaller fish. But if it's a big, if it's a long-term study that you're trying to follow a fish around, it can be difficult. So, see, these sizes here is about the size of the lipstick. So you imagine the size of the fish that will have to take such a big tag. It's not very comfortable up there. But they really are good. You can track these fish. It's an individual. Each tag has an individual signal on it, so you can track the individuals. They can indicate where you might be finding other fish, tell you where to throw your nets to recapture fish. But it's not something you do with a great number of fish, because it's an expensive tag, and it's not going to last forever with the battery. So, but it does have a very handy use in specific projects. These archival tags, especially for fish, can give you a lot of really good information. You can it stores the temperature, it stores light, it stores pressure data. So you can get from that, you can get a whole profile of what that fish might have been doing in a river or lake system. Of course, the problem with this thing, again, the same thing. It's got a battery. It's expensive. But the biggest problem is that to get your information, you have to find that fish again. So because it's big and because it's expensive and it's got a battery, you're not going to put a lot of those out. So your chances of getting the fish back is not very high. So there are things that come with these that have this pop-up action. So you're going to lose the fish, but the thing will come to a surface with a signal. You can go and find it and get all that information. But again, it's not really something that helps you with mass movement or anything like that. It's good for studies of finding out where individuals have been. GPS, that's for anything that we do. It's just not gonna do it. It's a big tag. It needs to be outside the water at some point to be able to get its GPS signal. So something like a big ocean sunfish, they come to the surface all over, great white sharks, dolphins, blah, blah, all that sort of stuff. So come around to the best thing for studies, movement studies, long-term studies, is we'll come around to these split tags. And that's generally what I work in most of the time, is assisting with monitoring projects by using the split tag technology. So PIT tag, the PIT stands for Passive Integrated Transponder. It's an internal tag. It's got no battery. It's going to be really small and basically lasts for as long as the fish is alive, and then it still lasts for, after that too, unless it gets crushed or broken or something like that. But yeah, it's a passive tag. So the passive part is no battery, no light. You don't lose it because of the battery. So studies do indicate that there's minimal long-term effects on fish behavior. These things have been used since the mid-80s in fish studies, starting in the Columbia Basin. And so we have plenty of studies out on the survival and behavior of fish that have these tags in them. And there's really there's no effect. The effect does come from, and which will, hopefully we get to Armando being able to show us some fish tagging techniques. But the biggest issue with the tagging is initially doing the tag. The tag itself is not really going to do anything, but if you mess up how the tagging is done, that's where your decrease in survival comes. You can kill the fish or injure it and change its behavior pretty substantially. Okay, so the pit tag itself is a combined receiver and a transmitter. Each tag, which is the great thing about these, each tag has a unique ID. So when you get that tag again, you know exactly what fish, what it belonged to, when's the last time you saw it. You've got all the details of that fish. It uses low frequency radio identification. So because it's low frequency, it can travel through most materials. It doesn't travel through metal. Metal blocks the signal completely, but it travels through stones, wood, water. That's the great thing about it, is that low frequency allows the signal to travel through all these materials. The way that it works is that the signal is transmitted as the passive tag is triggered by an active antenna. So the magnetic field, I'll get to the details of that on the next slide here, but that's how we're doing it. So you can see here we got the tag. The tag is passive, nothing's happening. It starts coming into this field, and this is our antenna field here. So this antenna, which I'll get to the basics of all of these parts of the system, but the antenna is sending out a signal. So that's always power. It's always running. That's where the power is. When the tag comes into that signal, it gets triggered by that field. And I'll put this on. I can show you quickly here how it works. So even in a bigger system, this would be what you'd have. You've got your reader over here, and this would be your antenna. So that could be something big in the river. And but what you've got here is coming off this antenna is a magnetic field. So as you come into, as the tag is inside this little fish, so as it's coming here, so now we're reading, as it's coming into this field, you can see the blue light coming on here. You can see it or not, but as it comes close, this tag is now triggered by that field, and then its individual number is recorded, so you know that that fish has come past a certain point, or that it's still alive, etc. Okay, there we go. So in some of the history of the pit tag that's been used in these fishery studies, a lot of the stuff that Nick was describing there in the Columbia Basin, They've been using it since the mid-80s. And then because it's had such wide use and such a lot of money put into the development of it to make it better for these restoration monitoring projects, we've been able to move it forward so that it's much more handy and much easier to use for fish studies, animal studies, and smaller and smaller fish. So we've got higher performing tags, so you get a greater read range of your antennas, but still a smaller tag. We've got much larger, this thing that everybody's carrying here is a big pit tag antenna that will sit inside a river. So we've got larger antennas. We've got systems where we can multiplex many readers so that we can span over a much wider river or a larger area. And we've got, as I said, bigger read ranges, and because of that, you get a higher read efficiency. So you know with greater clarity that the numbers that have come over your antenna are a good representation of the amount of fish that have crossed over. So other pit tag applications, and really where they came from, is from the livestock industry. They use it for cattle, and we've pushed it forward into where it's better for smaller animals and for the fish. So it's the same tag that goes in the livestock, the same tag in pet tracking, in the pets. It's starting to be more widely used in a lot in fish, and then wildlife movement, growth studies, abundance studies, and survival studies, and then for mark recapture studies where you're physically catching the fish again, scanning them, all over these passive antennas that are sitting in the river, and those are working 24 hours a day for you. So they're using them in South Africa for penguins and all the fish studies. So they're also using it in lab experiments. The chemical engineers and such, they've got these little mice, they're mazes and little chessboard things, and they monitor all these little mini antennas. They monitor where these mice are running around and can tell where they like to hang out, depending what's going on their square. And then an interesting one is the sediment transport studies. They put in a tag in a stone or a rock, and then you have antennas, or you go searching for the tags, and you can tell how far sediment has moved under different conditions of water flow. So, with that, let's go into, where are we on time? I'm not sure. 55 years? Oh, I think so. So, pit tag detection system, here you can see an expanded version of what I just showed you here. So, in a pit tag system, here's a good example of everything. We've got power, we've got the antennas, and then in the water we'll have the fish. These are the antennas here in the water. So it's an integrally linked system. It's only as strong as its weakest link. So each component is basically useless by itself. So you've got a really good reader, but a not so good antenna, you're not getting any tag read. If your power goes out, you're not getting a tag read. If one of your wires cuts, it's done. So basically this system really is a system that has to work together. So when you're doing this, as in any of the restoration studies or anything that we're doing, if we don't have a plan, you're basically planning to make it fail, which unfortunately happens a lot. The more remote your situation or your site's going to be, the more detailed your plan's going to have to be, because it's going to be, if you're getting dropped by a helicopter and you've left one of the things behind, there's a lot of money gone, disappeared, or the project's not going to work. Home Depot is a shop in the US, a hardware store. So, but if you're planning, you can avoid costly mistakes. So this is really important to keep in mind. The quality of the results is mostly determined by the quality of your data collection. So you're going to have a greater chance of success if you put that effort up front, the planning effort, and making sure everything's in place, that you're using the right system for the right situation. All of that stuff is in place. And often what we think is we're going to save money, and I'm a biologist, that I can maybe make an antenna or do something else. Cheap doesn't always end up being cheap. And that's not just about, your system. It costs you a lot more money, or you've lost your system. The biggest expense is that normally, if your stuff goes wrong, you've lost an entire season of data protection. So if you get your system in place, and then the water comes up, and you've lost your system, you haven't just lost the cost of what your system was, you've lost the cost of a whole runoff season of no data. And that's the most expensive part, is not having that monitoring information. So that's the thing we need to keep in mind. So the first part of the system, well, not first part, it could be, this is what I'll talk about first, but it's a reader. So there's different kinds of readers. This right here is a reader. This is pushing the antenna. So then there's a whole bunch of different types of readers that you'll choose or decide depending on what your question is going to be. So there's the handheld reader. Then there's a single or multiplexing bigger reader that's going to go into a bigger system across a river, or across an irrigation canal, or across a fish passage diversion. As I said, it depends on your question and what site you're in. If you're in a small site, something, just a little stream, you can have a lower power reader, something like this. You can connect a small antenna to it. It's just going to, these are the questions you'll ask when you're planning your stuff. Multiplexes I spoke about, where you can connect a bunch of antennas across a wider area, and then you put a reader that can do all of that. Our next piece is the antenna. So in this situation, this is our antenna. I'm going to go through a bunch of samples so you can get an idea of what the possibilities are, and keep in mind what your system looks like. It's something that will fit for the monitoring that you might want to do, or what you need to do. So this would be an antenna. So if this was a river system, this is what would be sitting either like this in the river or like this in the river. Fish is going to come through here, or it's going to go over here and be read like that. So here's some examples of antennas. This is a pass-through antenna. Fish is going to come swimming through. This is the best way you get the best read of antennas sitting like this. It's not that often when you can use antennas like that. With fish passage structures, you get the chance more often, because it's normally some kind of concrete or something that you can use, or you're not going to have a massive runoff from the river because it's a fish passage area. It wasn't really supposed to be in there, but if you do decide, if you are building your own antennas, which some people do get to, it can save you money, but as I said, cheap isn't always cheap. We need to remember. You just need to remember what our expertise is. Are we a biologist? Are we an electrician? Some people can combine both of those things, and we can make things successful. But other times, it's better to spend some money up front and to have it done properly, and then end up way more successful. Okay, so you have a passover antenna. It's the safest antenna in a bigger river system. You're not going to get smashed by trees and debris and stuff like that coming down a river. It's not the best read orientation. So the best orientation, as I said, is if a fish is going to go through your field. You've got a magnetic field coming out here, and your best is if that fish is going to go through there. This is your second best if it's coming over here. So if it's not too deep or it's a bigger system, this doesn't matter. You're still getting your fish. If the fish is swimming lower to the water, you're still going to get it. But these are things to take into consideration when you're putting your site up. Is it possible to do the best orientation, or do I need to go compromise and go down so that you don't lose your system? You don't always have to cross the whole river. It depends on your question. Sometimes you want to get on the entire passage because you want to know every fish that came by. You don't always have to have it. If you're just wanting numbers, some idea of getting extra numbers to help you with your electrofishing, or trying to get some extra resize for your statistics, then maybe you don't need to cross the whole river. Here's a large river that I was talking about. So you've got 6-meter long antennas. So each panel, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you can start spanning across the rivers. The new multiplexing systems, we can span 12 antennas from one system. You could bring two systems together and you could span 24 antennas. So then you've got 24 times 6 meters. You can see you can start really covering a wide river. Another example of a wide river, from past knowledge, they know that the fish mostly use this side of the river, so they only have a certain amount of money. Let's put the money into where we're going to get most of the fish passage. Just another example. These we started getting really serious in a section later on today when I visited one of our fish passage projects. So I'll go more into detail of that. But we've got the situation where it's a heavy stream, heavy river. There's a concrete base that's going to interfere with the antenna. So what we did is we basically built an antenna with concrete. It's a big, heavy, massive block, 3,000 kilograms or so, and that the river takes a lot of river to be able to move such a weight. So again, it depends on your situation. The more complicated, the more expensive it is. Small streams. Another small stream description. These are antennas in a pipe. They're pretty low cost, and it's in a system where you don't have to put too much effort into protecting anything. So it works really well. It's, the fishes, those are the 3 panels. And you saw that other one with the white stuff over. That's the same thing, but it's encapsulated into a protective case just to help it with rocks rolling and trees, etc. Covering under a bridge, built a wooden structure so that it can help give some structure to the antennas. 1, 2, 3. You've got the movement of the fish going through that section. This is another water diversion example. This is what I'll go, another one that will be more detailed in our next session. Then some of these half duplex antennas, I didn't go into that description of the differences. We have 2 different systems. It doesn't really matter for these purposes. If we do get into detail of something that we wanted to be doing in this area, then we'll get into those choices. But you can have, this system allows you to have simpler antennas in the river. Again, it depends on what your river is, what your question is, and the danger of losing your wire. Although it's a cheap wire, the danger of losing it is increased because it's just a wire. So if you want to lose your data or how do you want to think about it? This is a newish idea that we've had for some needs that we have in the Colorado Basin. It's just a small 1 meter across antenna, but everything is included in this thing. So you need nothing on the riverbank. You can go into an area where you've got deep holes or a pool or somewhere where or people mess with your stuff on the riverbank. You can take something like that that sinks all the way to the bottom. You can anchor it with sandbags or something at the bottom of the river or the lake or the pond. And that way the battery, everything is down there. There's nothing out on the surface. It lasts about 3 weeks. Take it up and change the battery. But your reader is in here, your battery is in here, your entire system is right here. Another one, I'll just going to go through quickly to do, instead of waiting for the fish, you can go down and start looking for the fish yourself. This is a floating antenna, this is a mobile one that you can walk around in the stream looking for the tag. I'll go into more detail in the next session. We have a really nice handy antenna that is this flexible cord antenna. So if you need to carry it in anywhere, something temporary, you take your whole setup. So this right here is the entire system, your reader, your antenna, and then you still need your power, battery or whatever. But that way you can take it in your backpack if it's something that you're doing temporarily or for terrestrial studies. It's really, really handy. Okay, so moving on to the power source within our system. This stuff runs on electricity, normally between 6, 12 or 24 volts direct current systems. So you need to, depends on where you are and what you're doing. Power from the grid. The AC power is really convenient. It's a lower cost because you don't have to buy it. The plug is there. But it can cause interference on this, in this, the magnetic field, because it's a pulsing current, and so that pulsing causes an interference with that frequency that we use for the tags. There are ways around it. You can there's converters where it takes it from the AC to the DC that are pretty good and clean up your power, and or you have a battery switcher which takes the power in, charges one set of batteries, then switches to another set of batteries, and you always run off the clean batteries that aren't connected to the power. So there are ways around it. It just gets, there's more things to add to your system and more costs involved as you add it. Sometimes it doesn't have any issues, sometimes it does. It's just how the magic of RFID works. Solar is one of the easiest and the cleanest forms of power. It's becoming way cheaper than it used to be, so it's a really good option. The sun's there enough in the day to keep your batteries charged for running your system during the night. And the cost is really just the initial cost. Once that's down, there's no contracts with any power company, there's no issues with interference from your solar system. Then there's these other things that we have to use in areas where the sun isn't, you don't have enough. Up in Oregon, areas where Nick works, where they're cloudy a lot of the time or short days. Then there's other ways, there's gas, thermoelectric generators. They also clean power, it also works well. Or you can put solar and that together. Another big, one of the biggest, the reason why we're doing all of this is to collect your data about the fish. So, big part of the system. The easiest, if you're in a space that's accessible and you can get to it all the time, is just to go there, you download it with your computer directly from your reader. That's not always possible, or you can only get there every few months. Then, so we have systems where you can hook to a cell tower, to a cell modem, a satellite modem, a landline, or a fiber optic line, depending where you are. You can hook your reader onto that, and then you can sit at your desk. I can sit, do it. If I have internet here, I can check the sites going on in Colorado right now and see what's going on there. So it's a very handy to get your data directly from that system without having to go out there. A big part of it also is if you are linked up to this remote thing, the remote system is that you can troubleshoot your antenna. So you can see if the water levels come up, everything's flowing crazy, you can go in there and look and see, wow, wait a minute, I better get down there, need some maintenance, things aren't working, you know when it stopped working, and it can help you keep things running. Now the big thing, once you figured out this is what you want to do, you've got your you've got your system, everything's going on, you need to select the site that you're going to put this in. Most of the time, your site it's already chosen for you by your project, what your project is. If you want to know the fish are moving through a barrier, you need something at the bottom of the barrier, you need something at the top of the barrier, so you can tell that the fish has gone through that barrier. If you're monitoring a new fish passage that you've built to help fish move past the barrier, that's where you're going to have to put your antennas. If it's more of an ecological study and you're just wanting to see those fish again, then you can go into a river system and choose where it's best for an antenna to be. Some of the things to consider when you putting your system together is that you need a safe area that you're going to put your electronics. If your electronics goes and it's not such a safe area, your system is done for. Sometimes you choose a really good area, then the river comes up, the 100-year flood that you weren't expecting, and you lose it anyway. So something like this, you can see here's the antennas in the water, and here's the electronics up here. So it'll take a pretty big flood, which it did last year, so it's all gone now. but it takes a pretty big flood to take that up. That's in the Grand Canyon in Arizona, and but that's kind of some of the stuff that you have to consider. So, people are a big issue too. You've got a big set of solar panels, depends where you are. Vandalism, people like shooting their guns off. Some of the areas that we work in Colorado, it can be problematic. People that dislike the government, see a government installation, they want to break things. So it is something to consider. You have to hide your stuff away, or it's difficult to hide a solar panel. So interference is another big thing to consider. Normally when we're going to go put in a system, we'll go there with an antenna and test the area. Put the whole thing together, test the area, make sure that you're not going to put all your effort into putting the system in, and then there's so much electrical interference that your system doesn't work. So one of the things I'll show you later on this afternoon is one of our sites where we're monitoring a really expensive fish passage system and for an irrigation canal. We put the whole thing together, everything's working beautifully. Downstream a little bit, the irrigators put in a pump that just completely destroys the field of our antenna. I mean, dead. So you're not seeing any tags. So all the money went into building the system that we have to monitor. Then we put the money in to put these antennas in, and then one pump for the irrigation water, and you've lost a year where you don't even know if the project worked for your antennas. So it's really one of your biggest considerations. So you're looking for these noises. This is the pump I was talking about, and sometimes you've gone in and thought that things are perfectly fine, and things change while you've gone back and built the system, and there's something there that you can never find. You pretty much shut it down or move the system somewhere else, which is not great. So also within when you're looking at your site, you need somehow to anchor your antennas in the water. So you're either going to use the substrate of the river itself. So you're going to drive in some of these anchors I'll show you. This project over here, that's I think the project was in the $500,000. They've got a big barge with divers on it. The divers went down in the water and secured these antennas down in the bottom of the water. You could be connecting it, drilling into a rocks to hold the antennas in, or really easy if you've got concrete walls, you use that. So again, a lot of the times for our fish passage projects, it's actually pretty easy to hold things in. So you see this group over here, all driving in this, they're all driving in an anchor that goes down into the substrate, and then you strap to that, you can hold your stuff in the water. So that's the sort of stuff you have to look for when you're putting your project together. Another project we had, we did a really thorough site visit, got everything organized, we brought everything down to the project that was going to be the biggest project on the San Juan River in the US. We started driving these anchors in, and we got about 30 centimeters deep, and the entire thing was lined with bedrock. So the project's still not in, we couldn't drive it in. So it's something we didn't really even think about in a site visit to go and test for that. Again, what you can think about is this just for a season? Is this something you want for years and years in there? Is it for a few days while you're busy doing another project? You can just put something, anchoring something temporarily. So these are the considerations you're going to put in with deciding how intricate your system is going to be. These are the anchors I was talking about. So you see this anchor here gets driven into this substrate of the river, and then you yank it up, and it works really well to hold you just strap to that and hold your antennas in the water. That's driving it in. Sometimes you have to do it by hand. Not as fun. So then you've got your whole system in. Everything's done and working and doing what it's supposed to be. But then you've got to do upkeep for these systems. They run really well, 24 hours a day doing scanning the fish for you, but they do take upkeep. Water levels come up. They could be washing things away. Things could be corroding. There's always something to upkeep. The more remote your site is, the more difficult and more expensive the upkeep is. Some of the sites where the stuff has been helicoptered in, it takes a big effort and plan and money to go back and monitor that site. That's where something like having a satellite or cell connection helps a lot with saving money on that front, because you can see what's going on without having to go down on it. Sometimes you have to float in. You know what site that you put your stuff in, so that it will also help you to know how much monitoring you're going to have to do. If you're in a concrete site that's been checked all the time by the irrigation people or something, you know that things are always being washed. If you put it in a site that you know freezes, you know you want to go check that site in the spring to make sure that nothing broke out and the ice came off. So once you know your situation, you'll know what kind of monitoring you want to put into it. As I said, you should always consider, if it's possible and if the money's there up front, or if there's cell connection or phone connections, it's really well worth it to put the effort into having a remote monitoring. You've got your data all the time, and you can check what's going on, you know what's the functionality. So costs to consider when you put in all these things together. As I said, it's very dependent on the site. If your site is next to the road and you're going to drive up to it and put your stuff out, you're doing great. It's not good. You're going to save money on that side of things. Remote sites are always more expensive. There is some differences between these two systems that we didn't really talk about. Your power is going to be a consideration. Is there a place that you can plug in, or have you got a partnership with a power company and they can easily bring a line to that site instead of putting the money into the solar? A lot of the sites that we deal with, the power company is actually paying for the stuff anyway, because they have to pay for the monitoring of the system because they're using the water. So if you've got people like that, it's very easy to talk to them for assistance. It's easy for them to come put in a pole, and that way they can offset that part of their mitigation money. So you just consider your partners when you're putting all this together. Most of the time you can definitely be buying readers, etc., and then you can consider doing some of the work yourself or contracting it all out. The model that we're using now a lot is one or two people from Valladolid, from the company that supplied the stuff, and then the rest of the group that helps with putting something in is of people that are already working for the state, or already working for the company or the water authority or whatever. They're really on salary, so you can use them to assist, and it doesn't increase the cost of the work that you do. And this is the biggest point here. Every time without fail, it costs more than you thought it would. It's just how it is. Suddenly you get to the field, something happens. There's always something. So when you're thinking about it and putting the thoughts together and figuring it out, just remember that is it's going to cost more. So ask for more if it's something that you have to be putting in for a grant up front. It's way easier to try to get more money at the beginning of things. Just come back later and say, we quite have enough. So for this section, I cut out a big piece of it so we can save time and go eat lunch. It's not really necessary to know that between those two different systems. And then after lunch we can get more into some of the examples of projects that we